Morning, everyone. So today we will discuss about traditional and progressive methods of teaching. In traditional methods of teaching, there are 6 examples. Number one is the lecture method. Number two is the study method. Number three is inductive method. Four is deductive method. Number five is project method. And number six is laboratory method. So in lecture method, this method is utilized by telling as a means of instruction. So there are 3 types of lecture method. Number one is pure lecture, which is demonstrated by the teacher. So the whole duration of the class is only the teacher is always talking. Number two is the lecture discussion, in which interspersed with discussion by the group. So there are discussion among the student within their group. And number three is illustrated lecture. It is accompanied by some forms of visual materials presented to be seen and looked over. So if there is present, or if there are visual materials that are present during the class hours, so it is example of illustrated lecture type. So there are advantages and disadvantages of lecture method. So one of the advantages is the economy of time, the attention, the preparation and presentation, the vitalization, motivation among the students, and the clarity and enrichment and speech habits. While the dangers and the disadvantage of lecture method, the teachers are talking too much. It is poorly planned and poorly done. Oral presentation is a waste of time. If the lesson is poorly planned and poorly done, it is just a waste of time of the students. Then lecture method sometimes invites passivity among instead of active participation during class. Then an effective lecture fails to hold interest or to hold a long period of interest and attention of the students, and the teachers likely to reduce the lecture to a dictation exercises. So the second traditional method is the study method. If we say the study method, it is an instructional method that refers to assigned scenarios based on situation in which students observe, analyze, record, implement, conclude, summarize, or recommends. In study method, it is created and used as a tool for analysis and discussion. So it is just like a case method during classes, or it, and also it provides unique example of real people in a real situation, enabling readers to understand ideas more clearly than simply by presenting them with abstract theories or principles. So in one of the example of the study method is about case study. So the students are simply analyze, record, then implement, then conclude, then summarize, and give the recommendation based on the real life scenarios given by their teacher. The third one, or the desire and the goal of an outcome of the study method, is number one is used as a teaching tools for engaging students in research and reflective discussion. Number two, it provides or it invites higher order thinking, is encouraged. Then number three is solutions to cases may be ambiguous and facilitate creative problem solving coupled with an application of previously acquired knowledge. Then the last one is they are effective devices for directing students to practically apply their skills and understanding. So it means, or it simply means, that the study method is the students are carefully analyzing and discussing about a real life situation and give their own solution. So the third one is the inductive method. So if we say inductive method, it is from specific to general. So instructions makes use of students noticing. Then the teacher presents example showing how the concept is used. So if we say inductive method, the subject is presented from specific, then going to the general sense of it. So the students are merely noticing about the method of the teacher use, and showing how the concept is being used during the discussion. So in an inductive method, it gives new knowledge. It is a method of discovery. The child acquires first-hand knowledge and information by actual observation. It trains the mind and gives self-confidence and initiative. It is full of activity, and it is an upward process of thought and learning principles. So from specific to general, so the concept is given in specific, then it is going to the general concept. So the student's role is through noticing what was the or what is the method of the teacher is being used. So in deductive method, it is the opposite of the inductive method. It is from general to specific. It is a more teacher-centered approach. This means that the teacher gives the student a new concept, explain it, and then has the student practice using the concept. It is also called a deductive instruction. So from if the inductive method is from specific to general, the deductive method is from general to specific. So if we say deductive method, it is a teacher dominated. It begins with abstract rule, generalization principles, and ends with specific examples and concrete details. Then in project method, the fourth one is the method is a significant practical unit of a problematic nature planned and carried to completion by the student in a natural manner and solving the use of physical materials to complete the unit of experience. So in project method, that the students are giving a practical problem during the discussion, and it is their plan or it is their nature to plan and carried out on how to give solution of that certain problem. So one of the example of project method is giving project to the students, and also it is using physical materials to complete the unit of experience. Example is experiment or any other activity that uses physical materials in order to complete that certain activity. Then it stimulates interest and bring about a new organization of the idea. It is also to encourage independent thinking and analysis of the material covered by the question, and to keep students find new implication in the discussion to secure information. So in the project method type of teaching, it stimulates interest and bring about the new organization of the idea, so that the students are formulating their new organization, their new understanding about the idea. It also encourage them to be independent, to think and analyze the materials covered by the question, and it is to keep students to find new implication in the discussion to secure information. So the fifth one is the laboratory method. So in the laboratory method, this method utilizes the principle of learning to do by doing, thus providing for the development and manipulative skills and managerial skills and acquisition of motor techniques. So there are three types of laboratory method. Number one is productive type. Number two is experimental type. The number three is observation type. So if you say productive type, it means that the result must be, there will be a product as a result. If you say experimental type, one of the best example of that is about experimental or scientific experiment. Then if you say observation type, it simply means that the students are simply observing on what is happening in their surroundings. So there are steps on the laboratory method. Number one is the students are to plan first, to execute, and to evaluate their problem. Then the last one is the question and answer method. So one of the most important phrases or phases of the teaching process is the art of questioning. So our teacher, if we can recall, the teacher is always questioning us. So that is a method of in the traditional method of teaching, the question and answer method. So the aim and the purpose of the question and answer method is to stimulate interest and bring about a new organization of the idea, to encourage independent thinking and analysis of the material covered by the question. The third one is to keep students find new implication in the discussion to secure information. So in question and answer method, so it also encourage the high thinking or their skills of the students, and it is also vital in how they think and analyze the material covered by the question. So there are points to be considered in framing and asking question. Number one is be brief and definite so that only one meaning is possible. So use language which is within the comprehension of the students. So since our mode of delivery is English, so sometimes our teacher is always questioning us in English language because it is vital to use language which is within the comprehension of the students. Then, and also in questioning, we must use correct grammar. Then the fourth one is vary the types of question, not always who. So sometimes the question is when, what, how. Then relate unfamiliar elements to familiar elements. Then repeat questions only when necessary. Then the teacher should consider individual differences and question should be within the capabilities of the student called upon to answer. So those are the example of traditional method of teaching. So my partner will discuss about the progressive method of teaching. Okay, sir, your turn.
Thank you, Sir Ben. I am tasked to discuss to you about the progressive methods of teaching. This method of teaching is derived from the philosophical concept of education progressivism. The proponents of progressive are John Dewey, Rousseau, and Karl Marx. They all agree that knowledge is not static, but that all reality of truth changes. Realities vary from one perceiver to another perceiver, and knowledge is dynamic. Students should therefore be allowed to learn freely and should be only assisted to discover new truth. Its main emphasis should be learning by doing. So, one of its main objectives uh, is to educate the whole child, that is, to attend to physical and emotional as well as intellectual growth. The school was conceived of as a laboratory in which the child was to take an active part, learning through doing. Most progressive education programs have these qualities in common: emphasis on learning by doing, hands-on projects, expeditionary learning, experiential learning, integration of entrepreneurship into education, strong emphasis on problem solving and critical thinking. Okay. The progressive methods in teaching clearly include inquiry, fieldwork, project, use of tools like computers, discussion, demonstration, and group work. In the inquiry method is a student-centered method of education focused on asking questions. Students are encouraged to ask questions which are meaningful to them and which do not necessarily have easy answers. Teachers are encouraged to avoid giving answers when this is possible, and in case to avoid giving direct answers in favor of asking more questions. In this way, it is similar to some respects to the Socratic method. Second one is the field work. In field work methodology, the two dominant methodologies of field work practice, the traditional and the scientific, have different aims implicit within them. The traditional approaches, sometimes termed fieldwork excursions, have aims rooted in the development of content knowledge. The scientific approach of data collection, hypothesis testing, and field inquiry extend the learning opportunities available and promote the application of learning objectives to the planning of fieldwork. Using the scientific methodology, learning in the field becomes as rigorous as learning in the classroom from a perspective.
Next is the project method of teaching. Utilizing the project method of teaching in technology education is not a new development. Teachers have been using projects as means of teaching technical skills, tool usage, and problem solving since the very beginning of the profession. The project method also provides an excellent means for increasing student learning. The project method is a teacher-facilitated collaborative approach in which students acquire and apply knowledge and skills to define and solve realistic problems using a process of extended inquiry. Projects are student-centered, following standards, parameters, and milestones clearly identified by the instructor. Students have control over the planning, refining, presenting, and reflecting of the project. Through projects, students are engaged in innovation and creativity. Next is use of tools like computers. Computer technologies as tools for instruction. Technology has a great potential to enhance student achievement and teacher learning, but only if it is used appropriately, used appropriately as classroom tools. Computers provide tremendous opportunities to enhance classroom instruction. Tools are extensions of our human capability. A tool alone does not function until it is used properly. Computer technologies as tools can empower students with thinking skills and learning skills, and help students to interact with complex materials. In addition, computers can help students to solve problems and
Independently and collaboratively.
the use of computer technology to address the realistic situations is likely to promote the integration of disciplines, foster a team approach to problem solving, and enhance individual responsibility. Next is the discussion methods. Discussion methods are a variety of forums to open-ended, collaborative exchange of ideas among a teacher and students or among students for the purpose of furthering students' thinking, learning, problem solving, understanding, or literary appreciation. Participants present multiple points of view, respond to the ideas of others, and reflect on their own ideas in an effort to build their knowledge, understanding, or interpretation of the matter at hand. Discussions may occur among members of a dyad, small group, or whole class, and be teacher-led or student-led. They frequently involve discussion of a written text. Through discussion can also focus on a problem, issue, or topic that has its basis in a text in the larger sense of the term. Example, discipline, the media, a societal norm. Other terms for discussions used for pedagogical purposes are instructional conversation and substantive conversations. Another one is, what is a method demonstration or the demonstration? A method demonstration is a teaching method used to communicate an idea with the aid of visuals such as flip charts, posters, PowerPoint, etc. A demonstration is the process of teaching someone how to make or to do something in a step-by-step process. As you show how, you tell what you are doing. A demonstration always has finished product. The key to a good demonstration is for the audience to be able to go home and do what you have taught them how to do. And the last one is the group work. A group work or cooperative learning is a method of instruction that gets students to work together in groups. Employers value a person's ability to work cooperatively. Indeed, studies show that they value it more highly than the ability to work independently. This is because in most contemporary workplaces, people work in teams, which are often cross-disciplinary and quite diverse. The value to students of cooperative learning has long been well recognized. Um, the difference between traditional and progressive method of teaching. In traditional, teacher-centered, bigger class size, isolated curriculum, subjects are taught separately. Product-oriented, learning of skills by repetition, concepts are presented as facts to memorize, then students are engaged in basic learning. In progressive one, student-centered, the class size is smaller, integrated curriculum, students learn many subjects in one lesson. Then it is a process-oriented, learning by various activities. Concepts are presented as questions to be investigated, and students are engaged in in-depth learning. Then, to recap this one, the different methods used in traditional teaching are lecture method, study method, inductive method, deductive method, the project method, laboratory method. And in progressive method of teaching, these are the inquiry, the field work, the project, use of tools like computers, discussion, demonstration, then the group work. In learning experiences, student taught in traditional approach are expected to learn as soon as the information is given to them. The teacher is the central figure of the traditional learning experience. In the progressive approach, however, learning is something that students themselves must experience through the guidance of their teachers and the environment. There is no structured curriculum, tests, grades, and homework. Students learn mostly through experiences, collaboration, and play. Then, for teachers' duty, teachers in traditional schools are seen as authoritative figures in the classroom and as main sources of information. Oftentimes, their teaching style involves rigidity and directness as they gauge learning on whether or not a student can pass exam or fulfill a particular academic standard. This means that the learning process of traditional schools deals more with pass or fail and rote learning. On the other hand, teachers are seen as facilitators in progressive schools. Instead of being figures of authority, they serve as guides to students as they learn and think inside and outside of the classroom. Teachers are not always the experts because knowledge is everywhere. Then, in students' experiences, in traditional school, students are not seen as active participants in the learning process. Learning is more passive. Teachers are mediums through which information is disseminated, and students are graded based on their perceived understanding of subject matter. On the other hand, progressive schools have less structure, as seen in their experiential curriculum and the absence of homework, tests, and grades. Subjects themselves are also treated differently between the two types of learning approaches. The traditional method prefers to keep disciplines separate, whereas the progressive method integrates them all together, allowing students to draw connections between them together. So, before I end up our report, I'd like to share with you a quote from John Dewey, where he said that education is not preparation for life, education is life itself. Therefore, it's a process of living and not for future living. So that's all. Okay, thank you.